Ooh, okay. Let that wash through you. Great message. Loving the music today with our new friend Dan. This is wonderful. And Bonnie set such a deep intention for ourselves as we create this circle together. So let's get started by just closing our eyes for a minute so that we can kind of really connect with our breath, ground ourselves in being right here in this present moment, whenever this present moment is for you, whether you're joining us live or later, just connect in your present moment right now. Connect to your breath, connect to your higher power, whatever word that is that comes to you. Love, God, spirit, source, creator. Just connect to that universal energy that's greater than any one of us. And just set the intention right now that as we move into this sacred space together, that we're hearing and we're connecting. And so with that, I call in our guides, our guardians, and the spirits of the four directions to help us with all the gifts they bring, with all the medicine they bring. Receive whatever message is in this that helps us move to a higher place with ourselves. So, yeah, the talk today that came through, living sacred in an unfriendly world. Well, that's what I'm hearing from a lot of people. The world's feeling really unfriendly. I mean, what a week it's been. Whether you were tuning in to the debate on Tuesday, the news in general, right? Or everybody's private lives seem to be getting uprooted. Lots to process, a lot of things to struggle with. There's suffering all over the place. We're struggling with, how do we process that? How do we help it? We're feeling pushed on, we're feeling challenged by the news, by the moon, the full moon this week, the astrology of everything, the shift of seasons, the change in the light, the change in the clocks that are coming, all of this kind of pushing on us, and it doesn't feel comfortable. For a lot of people, nothing feels comfortable right now. And this is a really important time. When things aren't comfortable, pay attention even closer. I wrote in the introduction that you'll be surprised to hear that the answer to all of this, how do we tune into this, is not kindness. Kindness is always an answer, but it's not always the exact right answer. And so I want to dive in a little bit deeper today to figure out, what do we do when we have all of this stress from chaos and noise around us? Conflict. There's constant conflict. There's constant conflict going on inside of me. And everybody I know, we're struggling with that. And it's always been around though. So that's kind of the piece to look into, is the fact that it's always been here. Conflict has always been here. The issues in the world that we feel today, the issues in our politics we feel today, it's always been here. It's not even that it's turned up louder. It's just that I believe that the film has been lifted. It's like the shadow has gone away because the light's being cast on what it is. That's that noise. That's that chaos. And a lot of other conversations I've had with other healers and tuned in, turned on people, kind of feel the same way. Like, this has always been here. Just like all of our big issues, racism and minority issues, they've always been there. We're just getting the light cast on them now. So, what do we do with this? It's a really important time in our lives, in the realm of things, in our lives right now, because we're here on the front lines dealing with it. So, what are we going to do with it? We used to say tolerance. Tolerance used to be the word. Everybody has to have tolerance. And tolerance has this negative, low vibrational, connotation to it. And so then we move from tolerance to say like acceptance. Okay, so we were kind of like, whether you understand it or not, something that causes you discomfort, you need to accept it. Find a way to accept it without your preconceived notions, and then that can be integrated into your life. But today I think I want to challenge that, because this idea of even if you don't understand it, accept it, I think is one of the places we're catching. Okay, I think understanding is really essential to the world that those of us who are spiritually aware are really trying to tune into. If we really want a world that's loving, we actually have to do the hard work and stretch ourselves to understand each other. And it's not actually hard work if you set your heart space right first. But it feels difficult to understand people that we don't agree with. It feels difficult to understand viewpoints that aren't ours. If they're close to ours, it feels okay. But, just consider your political stance, your political opinions right now in the United States. Most likely, you're having a real hard time understanding what the other side is because we have such a wall of conflict between us. Now, it's the conflict isn't the issue, it's the understanding each other that is the issue. We don't need to necessarily bring people to think differently, but we do need to understand each other differently so that we take love and calm down the emotions inside of us that are so disruptive. The resentment and the hatred, and any part of it on that spectrum of negative feeling toward another person or a viewpoint is something that's starting from inside of ourselves. And that's the only thing that we have control over. So, that understanding piece, being empathetic, being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, is really essential for this idea of being able to peacefully abide with each other in a world that we want to consider welcoming, in a world that's warm, in a world that neighbors care about each other. Every religion throughout history calls us to live in peace with one another. So having these conflicts between us, without any resolution, without any peacefulness, is where wars begin. And we have a lot of wars going on, but the war that we need to address first is anything that's inside of ourselves and anything within our immediate relationships. So, getting to a place of understanding is essential to calming our hearts. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hatred cannot drive out hatred. Only love can do that." So when we really take that message in deeply, darkness cannot drive out darkness. When we answer something that we see that we don't like, or something that we hear with what we don't like, with more, "I don't like that," rather than seeking to understand that. Where is that coming from? How could they have gotten to that point? When we do that, we're meeting it with the same thing. So we need to change the way we meet conflict in our lives. This is one way to address it if we really want to create a world that is warmer and loving. Okay, so it's important than ever now that we have some sort of a practice that fosters a space of equanimity in our minds and neutralizes our own perception, that our ego has. So we are very, very attached when we're passionate. We're very attached to an idea. We're very attached to a concept. We're very attached to our emotion about it. And while it's okay to be passionate, it's also important to know how to neutralize our own emotions to create space for others. Okay, it doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but to create that space. And the most important way that you can do that is to have some sort of a daily spiritual practice, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's sitting meditation, walking meditation, rituals of some sort, but in a way, bringing our human, these reptilian minds back every day through some sort of practice to our true intention of being here, to the connection to our own divine selves, to recognizing that we're not just our human ego spinning on everything, but that we actually have a spirit, that we want to hold ourselves in the highest possible vibration that we're capable of at that day in this moment. And by having a practice to do it, it gives us the equanimity we need in order to receive more gently everything that doesn't jive with us. There's a landing place for that. There's a space for that doesn't eat it right away, that doesn't jump on it right away and try to strangle it. It's not the enemy. Okay. So ask yourself on that level, when we go inside and kind of look at ourselves and take accountability, like what's your attitude about things that make you tick right now? Are you inflammatory really quick inside? Do you see something on the news or hear something from somebody you care about or see something on your social media and we are all so quick to be inflamed right now. It's like we have this inflammatory disease throughout humanity's perception right now. Boom. And we're very heightened, and that's why this work is important today. So think to yourself, what is your attitude about things that make you tick? Okay. We need to know and be able to dwell in that neutral space that we're cultivating. It's okay to have that internal reaction, and then we need to check ourselves and get ourselves into a place of neutrality if we want to do the work around it. And we're called to do the work around it. If you're listening to this, you're called to do the work around this. Okay. So then you look at it and say, how am I contributing to this? How am I contributing to the problem? How am I contributing to the viewpoint? How am I contributing to the conflict? What part am I taking in that? Am I unwilling to discuss it? Am I unwilling to listen to anything else? Am I judgmental? Am I sticking into this place where I know I'm right? Am I feeling victimed? Am I feeling that somebody's harming me and I'm not willing to take responsibility for my part of that? How well do you understand who you are in the conflict with? Do you understand what part you're playing? Because any conflict we have, it's not happening to us. If we think something's happening to us, we're not in an evolved way of processing it yet. It's okay to be there, but recognize when you're there and recognize, ooh, I've got some work to do around this. Because this is where we suffer. We suffer when something's happening to us. Instead of recognizing the alternative, which is something's happening and I'm experiencing it through my own viewpoint, through my own perception, through my own experience. It's not happening to me, it's happening, and I'm here experiencing it. It's the don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. And then we develop these triggers inside of us. Then anything that happens, even similarly to that, some sort of trauma we suffer in our lives, boom, we PTSD it the rest of our lives. And anything close triggers that. It's happening to me again. It's happening to me again. I've been doing this all week long myself until I finally thought, oh my gosh, it's not happening to me. It's just happening. And here I am personalizing it. It doesn't matter if it's somebody who's dying in your life or an argument you're having with somebody or the way the news is downloading to you. It's not happening to you. It's happening and you're experiencing it. Okay. So when we shift ourselves into that space, we have a little bit more equanimity and we're able to hold space for one another even if we have different opinions, even if we have different experiences, even if we have different karma, different stories that have led us to what our opinion or feeling is about something. And see, we all have that. We all have that. We all have a story. We all have things that have led us to this end point, whatever it is, this opinion about something, this experience of something. So when we have conflict between people, they're each just coming from their own story. And then they right here in the middle, because nobody wants to acknowledge that this person has a whole story that led up to it. And this person has a whole story that led up to where they are. They just look at what their opinions are and say, you're wrong, I'm right. And that doesn't get us anywhere. That actually fosters harm. And this is what we're trying to move away from. This is the work. Do no harm. Start there and then do good for yourself and for others. So one thing that comes up when you think about loving relationships, the most important thing, it's like the first duty that we have to each other is to listen. Listen. And this is, I'm not saying anything new, right? I'm sharing with you my perception of how this can serve us right now. And we have listening, and we all know, like, if you listen, this will be good, right? Biggest communication problem is that we listen to understand, or that we don't listen to understand. We listen to reply, right? Or react or respond, but we don't really listen to understand. That's the point. We need to do that. The understanding piece is missing. So I call that sacred listening, this listening to understand, but the sacred piece is important. It's not just listening mindfully. It's listening with an intent to bring the divine into it as well. When I was, I think I was about 20, my Cherokee elder teacher, Jean, ordained me as a Native American pipe carrier. And so that really came up for me today in the way that I understand sacred listening. And so what we have with me today is the medicine of my most recent pipe. This was my pipe from my wedding ceremony. And I think, let me see if I can't show you. We've got above me the beautiful white buffalo calf woman. This is one of my favorite renditions of her. So she was printed special and very large for my office here, because she brings this medicine of listening in a way that connects you to the creator. Let me finish. There we go. Finish adjusting that. So connecting yourself to the divine while listening. In the pipe ceremony, I want to look at that a little bit from a theoretical point of view, as opposed to, I'm not teaching the pipe ceremony. That would be more like a workshop. But from looking at the perspective of the pipe ceremony and what it can do. And there are many different ways. The pipe ceremony is one of the most sacred rites we have with Indigenous people through many different nations and many different tribes. And all of those ceremonies can look a little bit different. But if used alone, it connects an individual through the smoke to Great Spirit. That's the simple message. If used in a circle, it can be a prayer circle, but it can also be used among a few people as what you may have heard of as the peace pipe. And the peace pipe is specifically used for conflict. So using the ceremony to resolve conflict. It frames the sacred space that's needed for that communication to happen. And it bridges that communication to Great Spirit. So bringing the divine into the solution. Okay. Every religion has their own way of putting that out there. And I know a lot of us sometimes are a little turned off by the religious speak of it all. So the spiritual speak to me is just taking that higher purpose, that deeper heart space, and making sure that that's injected into the communication, that it's not just listening psychologically to make sure somebody feels heard, but it's actually injecting it with that divine energy to find a space that raises everybody up. And you still, in the end, you don't need to agree, but there's a different understanding. And that's really important. So the smoke rising in the pipe ceremony is the connection. And inside of you, there's a rising that can be your own connection. So if there's a conflict, this designated, sacred space maintains the respect and the intention to understand while, a disagreement can be happening. This was used a lot between chiefs from different tribes that wanted to live peacefully with each other. And so that energy is very needed now. Um, there is there are so many greater conflicts that are even in our subconscious right now that we don't even see in front of us because everything we see is so noisy right now. But they all tap into this old stuff, this stuff that's in our subconscious that we've inherited a lot of, and when we inherit things like that, it's deeply seated in the egoic cellular membrane. And so when we focus on that, it's really hard to shift ourselves out of that. But when we bring in that intention to understand and we bring in the divinity, we release ourselves from the ego so that things can shift and move and kind of align together, even if they're still separate. I still have a left hand and a right hand. They can merge, they can collaborate together without losing each of their own identities. And we as people, we can do this too. So what the chiefs discovered, was that the power did not lie within the speaker themselves. It was more powerful to to the power of the silence in between, the power of the listening was what was important. And that sacred pipe, as well as talking sticks. Eventually, some tribes had talking sticks. We've integrated talking sticks into the classroom. Talking sticks were used more like in council work. So where you had a big circle, they'd always have the talking stick and the listening feather. And that was a little bit different, but it's still the same concept. They've remained symbols of power, of honor, and integrity among Indigenous people that use those tools. And so we can bring that into our lives now. Well, how can we learn from those ceremonies? What can we bring in for ourselves? How do we emulate the symbolism of a peace pipe ceremony in this idea of sacred listening for ourselves? So the process that I think is important is to center yourselves first. There takes intention, right? So you center yourself in your divine abiding, wherever you're connected, center yourself in that. And then based on, what we do here at Angels Landing, we tune in to those 4 agreements. So we put those 4 agreements in the top of our attention so that we understand that we're not going to take anything personally. We're going to be as truthful and as authentic as we can be. We're here with our best intention, that we really want to understand each other, that we can put our ego to the side to be authentic. So we bring these agreements in together, and that's part of our intention in our mind. It doesn't matter if the other person is in the same place or not. You're only responsible for you. If they are, you're going to get a lot further. That's the beautiful part about coming together in a ceremony. Everybody kind of has the same intention. But this is good for you regardless, even if you're coming to a conversation and you're the one coming in ceremonially. And you can share that as well. But after you tune into your four agreements, you're going to set your intention that whatever needs to happen in that space is for the highest good. It's for the highest good of you, of the other person, of your common good. And especially if it's like a humanitarian or political topic, of the good of the whole, right? The good of all people, because we are all one. So the good of the whole comes in. And then you need to open your heart, open your mind. When you open your heart, though, you can hear differently in your mind. That's that sacred listening. Listening to understand from a divine place, not just the psychology of it all. And so then you're going to process for understanding. Process for understanding what's on the other side of you. That's really a part of you too. But what's on the other side of that? Respectfully empathize. If you don't understand something somebody's saying, say, where did that come from? How did you come up to that conclusion? And here's the thing, when we listen in a sacred way, we're not trying to go head to head with somebody. We're getting next to them. We're getting right next to them and saying, I want to understand this from your perspective. How did you come to this conclusion? And truly, truly set your intention there and ask questions and learn their story and learn their traumas and learn their concerns and learn their fears. Because if you can understand where somebody is and they feel heard and understood, then they reach a little, they get a little more mobile. They're not so, restricted. Oh, because most of us want to be understood. It's like being understood is being loved, is being treasured. And not understood on like, did you hear me? But understood on like, how deep are you listening? So when we can shoulder to shoulder with somebody, especially if it's conflict with somebody we love, shoulder to shoulder with them, get it from their perspective. If they feel understood deeply and they feel respected and accepted, then guess what? You can kind of let them lean into you. And what naturally happens, especially with people that are close to each other, is that you start to shift a little bit together. It's not a manipulation, but then they're going to be saying, when they feel understood, how are you on this? And you get to tell your story, and everybody gets to lean into each other a little bit more instead of being in this solid place where we bounce off of each other. So this is important work. And where it's needed, you have to drop your ego. Lean into Ho'oponopono. This person has had something happen to them that's led them to, a belief, etc. And most likely, I don't care what you're talking about, most likely it's connected to some sort of trauma that happened in their life or happened to somebody they care about. In which case, silently or aloud, you can help them heal that. Ho'oponopono prayer is a great place to do that, right? I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. On behalf of whatever it is that caused the trauma for them. And when they get released from that veil of perception and fear, they get a little bit more mobility. They get a little bit more mobility in their thinking, in their mind, and it happened respectfully. And they feel understood. And this is the essence of connecting between people through communication. And the beauty is our part of it is to receive. And that's part of the communication, is to receive. So when we receive that wholeheartedly, and then we respond compassionately, then you look for confirmation that you understood what was being shared. And don't stop until they have peace that you're really getting them. Reiterate it. So I understand you feel this way because of this, and this led you to feel that way. And once you have that confirmation that they are so excited that you actually, yes, it's exactly what happened. Do you understand now why I feel that way? Oh, yes. I didn't know that about you. Thank you for sharing that. And then you get to kind of move a little. Have you ever thought of this? Did you know this? Wow, had that not happened, how do you think you would feel differently? And we move each other a little bit off of our, kind of high horse, so to speak, by being able to share our hearts. So when we have a space to bring up our fears and our concerns and we're heard, we get to kind of let go of them a little bit. That's what happens. That's the important part of all of this. So the teaching is that there does not need to be a consensus between people who disagree. That's not the issue. There needs to be understanding. There needs to be respect. There needs to be acceptance. There needs to be that love for like humankind present, even if it's not somebody that if you're not a fan of the president, you probably don't want to say you love him, right? And yet there's a love for humankind. There's a love we put out there for everybody. And that brings respect and acceptance. You don't have to like what anybody is saying or doing, but we don't project that onto the person. We keep it on their actions and words. This saves our own soul. This helps us stay in this place of abiding peace in our highest divine vibration. Okay. So if you have trouble with that, then that helps define where you need the work, where I need the work, where we all need the work. But where we have trouble shifting into that finding love for every human being, it's sticky, right? It's hard sometimes. That's where we need the work. So this dissolves conflict. The conflict is not having the different opinions. The conflict is being unable to understand one another and allow a conversation to move forward. And we know these conversations right now are hard to have, and they're important to have. I know I personally am not a fan of conflict. I try to kind of avoid it, put it over here. I'm not a head-on person. I used to be. I used to bring it on, let's have a debate because my ego's going to win. And that's not who I am anymore. And my imbalance came in just not wanting to deal with conflict because I'd much rather just like hold this loving space for this person in my head and heart and know that, we may think differently. I can accept them, but I don't understand them. And with that understanding, whether they recognize it or not, they feel that. Don't you feel that when somebody just doesn't accept you? Like they accept you, but they don't understand you and they're going to keep you at an arm's length away. And you're like, I feel that. I don't know what's going on. I feel that. Most likely, they just don't want some sort of conflict, but there's an issue. But they don't want the conflict. They don't want the head-to-head thing. If we can come together in this place, that we create this sacred space like a pipe ceremony does, where we say, yeah, there's something going on here. I want to share my heart with you. And I'm doing this and I'm being vulnerable because I respect you. I care about you. I want things to be better. I want you to understand me. I want to understand you better because something's going on here that's just not jiving. That creates a better space. So it's not about having some great leader that's going to come along and all of a sudden, make everybody love each other. Not likely, never really has been. We've had some leaders that are more loved than others. There's never been a leader that actually brings everybody together. We've had division throughout all of human history. It starts with the individuals. The people have to do it. We have to do it. It's not easy, and I get it, after the debate, my brother's a great example. He's always on the call. He and I have some different conflicting political opinions and humanitarian opinions, and there's some things we align with. But I like to take that head on, especially with him. It's a safe space. I can talk with them and say, hey, I can't possibly see the other side of this argument that I feel really attached to. Tell me how you're feeling. How do you see this? Why do you think that? And he opens my mind up. If I'm not attached to my opinion, oh, I didn't think of that. Oh, you're right. Well, I could see how in your position that makes sense. And he just can't see anything else. And I said, well, from my position, this makes sense. And this is why. Oh, yeah, I haven't thought about that. And so all of a sudden we're understanding each other, and we can still have the different opinions, but we're not going to be upset with each other. So I get it's hard, but it's really important. It's really important. So a little more Native American wisdom here, and then we're going to shift into a meditation. When Chief Crazy Horse was smoking the sacred pipe with Chief Sitting Bull for the very last time, he was assassinated 4 days after this particular pipe ceremony. He said, I salute the light within your eyes where the whole universe dwells. For when you are at the center within you, and I am at that place within me, we shall be one. So, wherever, whoever you may be having struggles with, remember, we're all one. Okay. Taking the time to be introspective helps us find that place where we are all one, so we can align with each other and stop doing harm. We're doing harm with our thoughts, and it turns into harm in the world. If you've never understood the power of your thought, and you look at the chaos and the noise going on, that all starts with thoughts. And those thoughts are conclusions through the perceptions of individual stories. If we start to understand each other's stories and we listen with respect, we can bring a lot of healing. Bring that divinity in so that you're not just a good listener, but you're a sacred listener. Okay, so with that, I want to go into a meditation where we're kind of creating our own internal pipe ceremony. So I want you to just go ahead and close your eyes, get comfortable, and connect with your breath. And connecting with your breath, just breathing naturally, breathing in the present mindfully. It's like opening the pouch, bringing in the air. Okay. And now as you center yourself, center and find balance in yourself. After we open the pouch, in a lot of traditions, the pipe is kept in two separate pieces. And so we put the pipe together. And the symbolism of putting the pipe together is bringing the yin and yang energy together, the feminine and the masculine, Great Spirit, Mother Earth. We bring it all together. That activates it. So as we center and balance ourselves, we activate ourselves in the same way the pipe gets activated. And then we usually take a little bit of earth and rub earth on the bowl of the pipe to awaken her, okay? And ground her. So think now as you go through your centering and balancing to ground yourself, to root yourself in Mother Earth, and to awaken that grounding up through your body and connect to your higher power. Aligning with the divine. As you align yourself with that divine energy inside of you, that's like packing the bowl with kinnick with the herbs that we smoke. And then we honor the 4 directions, and that sets our intentions. So right now, set an intention with yourself to create the sacred space inside of yourself, in your mind, in your heart, consuming your spirit, to allow yourself that place of understanding, that spaciousness, to allow yourself to understand more than what you already do, to allow yourself to understand that which isn't inside of you, that is reflected from others. Allow your wisdom to come up. Now, prayerfully, sit with these thoughts in that sacred space. It's almost like with every in-breath of the pipe, we don't actually inhale the smoke. We take it in, we hold it, and we exhale it all out. We never actually pull it down into our lungs. So with all of these thoughts, this is like puffing on the pipe, so to speak, and passing it back and forth. But for yourself, you're doing it with yourself right now. It's your own private, prayerful conversation with your higher power. So what's your attitude about the noise around you? How do you feel? What emotions come up with any topics that make you tick, any topics that agitate you, cause conflict, stress you out? What's your attitude about those things? And just see it. This is where it's really important to become witness to it, not judge yourself, but get outside yourself and just look in. Becoming the witness helps you rise above it. If you need to kind of picture yourself as, a bird looking down on yourself and seeing it through a bird's eye view. What's your attitude about the stresses in your life? Ask, how am I contributing to this conflict in myself? How am I fostering it? Am I allowing too much information outside of me to penetrate? What am I watching? What am I reading? Am I watching too much? Am I out of balance with the things that bring me back into alignment, the practices that are important in my life that help me stay connected? Do I only use one source of information and that fosters that message and drives it in deeper without understanding a counterbalance? Do I like to have conversations with people who just agree with me so I can feel righteous and justified? Do I get gossipy? Do I spin the tales and make them deeper and heavier and with more power and more cuttingness? How am I contributing to this conflict and stress inside myself? What do I need to own about me that continues to feed the stress and conflict inside myself? Can I own it? Can I say, without attachment to my ego, yeah, you know what? I do that. I get myself all worked up, and then I call somebody who'll agree with me and I get them all worked up. And I'm kind of fostering this pattern of negativity that I just felt really righteous about. So I didn't, think that it was really doing any harm. I feel really justified in how I feel, and I'm refusing to see anybody else's perspective. Conscious and unconscious biases. What ego do I have in my conscious and unconscious biases? What am I holding on to? Do I know it? Am I allowing it to surface? Can I take some space right now to maybe let anything subconscious that's not serving my highest good surface itself in this sacred space so I can look at it, so I can acknowledge it, so that I can work on whatever that's attached to and intend to release it? Am I willing to let that consciousness shift how I feel about something? Am I willing to say out loud, I may feel differently because I'm learning this about myself? Allow that space to even recognize any maybe inherited karma. What might I have noticed about myself and my views with a broader view? What maybe was I programmed with by others that seeded this inside of me? And maybe it's not my thought. Maybe it's not my feeling. Maybe I just have kind of bought into this for a while and I wasn't really aware of that. Personal trauma, what might I still have to heal that could be affecting my point of view, that keeps me attached to something that's causing my suffering? Can I find a way to have my opinion without so much emotional charge to it? Can I be authentic and neutral? How do I get to that space of being authentic and neutral in order to communicate with someone else, in order to do the sacred listening? Doing the sacred listening for yourself now before you do it with somebody else. Can I look inside of this sacred space and remember that the conflict's not happening to me? It's happening and I'm here experiencing it. It's not personal. So visualize that sacred circle in your mind, a space that's created in you, very ceremonial, spacious, full of possibility and higher vibration. I want to visualize yourself deeply rooted in the middle of this space like a willow tree. Your roots are planted in Mother Earth for grounding, for stability, and they're planted deeply. You water those roots with your daily practice. And now picture those willow branches, long and far reaching, very flexible. They can reach the full width of your circle. They're able to touch and embrace all parts, all people, even the dark ones, even the ones that are fighting a lot of shadow battles inside of themselves. This is your sacred transformation that you are co-creating for yourself through sacred listening, noticing what arises and bringing sacred attention and understanding to it, willing to explore it, to understand it. Now come back to center, opening your eyes. Recognize that that space you can create at any time for yourself. It's an important circle to have, an important prayer space, intention space to create. This is what we need to do with one another as well as ourselves. It's not modeled well in our world today of how to communicate with each other. We need to trailblaze this. We need to trailblaze this and be the models of it. When we do that hard work of listening through conflict, we give permission to each other to continue to do it with others as well. And that's essential today to understanding. I'm going to close with this beautiful card that was given to me the other day. It says, the key to prayer is to forget what I think I need. And that is the pipe ceremony, to forget what you think you need and to really be there to serve what the other person needs, to be the channel and the divine instrument for what that other person needs. And in that, you will transform yourself. You may help transform them or give them that opportunity. And this is doing the work. This is rising into the spirit. Thank you. Whew, everything is holy now. That last verse, the cardinal, I was just, the space of humbleness to truly digest that sacredness, that holiness in absolutely everything, allows us to move into this place of great blessing, to be able to listen to each other. I hope we take that away today and bless everybody with it. So, our final blessing. Great Spirit, bless us to carry the sacredness of the pipe inside of us consciously, that any conflict in our hearts may be met with the ability to listen deeply and invite your divine spirit in to guide the healing that needs to happen. Please bless us to keep our minds and hearts open to others that think differently than we do, that we may always honor them first as another traveler with a worthy journey, known or unknown. We ask blessings upon all conversations in the world today, both internal and external conversations, that all people use their ears more than their mouths and bring respect into all exchanges. Please give voice to the timid and the vulnerable, and bless us all to receive them with open hearts and humble egos, that the darkness and shadows of humanity may be dissolved. Aho.